Is it inter or intra?
Well,
Welcome to Court Captains, a volleyball podcast.
where we talk all things Pro Volleyball Federation. I'm Kelly.
I'm Nikki.
I'm Ian.
And today we're talking pre-draft musings.
Thoughts.
So many thoughts.
Feelings.
Later, we're going to be talking to Jay from PVF Draft Hub about some draft picks. Should be good.
Thank you for joining our pre-draft episode. And thanks for listening to our off-season interview series. We loved getting to chat with players across teams and hearing their stories. We hope you enjoyed it too.
Name your favorite. Go. I'm just kidding.
I would never. I could never.
You won't.
But I am super excited for season 2.
Got the schedule release a week away from the draft-ish.
Yeah, the schedule is released.
What time is the draft?
It's at 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern, on Monday, November 25th.
And when is Selection Sunday for the NCAA? Is that Sunday? This Sunday? Usually it's around Thanksgiving.
I couldn't dream of knowing when that is.
Okay. It might be the Sunday after Thanksgiving. I just we're going to have a lot of volleyball exciting things happening in the next
many selections
couple
to be made.
Weeks.
Yep. A lot going on. Also, the draft will be streamed live.
Oh,
we did it.
Yes.
We gonna be in the chat.
It'll be live. Get on YouTube. Get in the chat. I did block my work calendar for like a long lunch.
First pick, Indie Ignite.
That's correct.
So exciting.
Do they get an extra pick?
No, they get 5, just like
Everyone else.
everybody.
Well,
except for the trades that occurred. We'll get into that.
All right.
In a sec. I want to talk about first a revisit of the signings that occurred this year and do a little signings by the numbers. Just take a step back, refresh everyone on what each team is working with right now.
All right, hit us with it.
I've did a little analysis on the total number each team has signed, the number of returners they have, the number of PVF transfers, and then the number of women who are new to PVF.
Data.
So before we look at those final numbers, I'm going to refresh us on what we know of the roster rules. So Jen Spiker said on a podcast in the offseason that 25 players can come to preseason. The PVF website still says that 14 players are on the active roster. I haven't been able to confirm whether that's still the case. I can't imagine it would have changed with increased salaries. Like it would have increased with increased salaries, but it could have. Last year, it was 14 active and 2 rookies on the practice squad. Also haven't heard otherwise about that. The only detail that I did hear for this upcoming year is that on a recent Grand Rapids area sports podcast, Kathy George said, we'll have our roster at 16. And that still doesn't confirm whether it's 14
like
active
14 and
to practice.
Rookies,
yeah, unless it moved to 16 active and they're messing around with that practice squad thing.
How many practice did we have last year?
2 practice squad members who had to be college grads, recent college rookies, essentially.
Rookies, yep.
So with Kathy George saying that, it makes me think it's the same, but I haven't been able to 100% confirm. Okay, so thinking about rosters and what they're looking like, I am most excited about Omaha's roster. It's deep.
Opposite for me, obviously.
Oh, you're not
There's
excited.
A gaping hole on the Omaha roster that I'm sure we'll have to talk about. Currently lighting up Athletes Unlimited, but it's not a big deal.
So they signed 12, which means that they would have 2 active roster spots left. They've got only 3 returners, which I think is kind of interesting considering they're the reigning champs, although the stock of those players went up after the championship. So this is maybe one of the only years that we would see players from a championship team not stay. It's like because everybody only had those 1-year contracts, that's why everybody was able to probably go get more money elsewhere. So 3 returners, 5 interleague transfers, and 4 new to the PVF.
They lost Vuchkova. I just want to say she went to Turkey to play for Fenerbahce, who also has a soccer team, and it's just like an all-world team name.
Is that the hole that you were referring to?
What?
Who were you
The hole?
referring to in the
Betty,
Betty.
obviously.
Betty?
She's crushing Athletes Unlimited right now.
Yeah,
She's retired, supposedly.
She's retired. I got
Not
you.
from Athletes Unlimited.
No, sure.
From the PBF.
Yep.
Well, so who are their
exactly
returnings then? Who are they actually bringing back from the title-winning team?
Well, they kept Brooke.
She got a pay raise.
Yeah, seems legit.
You know it. They kept NVA setter Natalia Valentin Anderson, and they kept
Sophie Davis, I think.
Yes, Sophie Davis.
Yeah, middle blocker.
Mm-hmm.
So it's bare bones in terms of who they brought back.
But they grabbed Reagan Cooper from Columbus. Mac Pedraza is the second setter from Rise. Kayla Caffey from Rise. Caitlin Horde from Fury. And Camila Gomez from Rise as their libero with Kendall White leaving. I think that was a great move. Gomez got the start for Rise toward the end of the year, and she did great.
I mean, the Cooper-Brooke combo seems pretty fun.
I think maybe unstoppable.
Whoa, setting the flag down. Title prediction.
That's what I'm saying. I'm very excited about what they have going on. It's kind of like who wouldn't want to play volleyball in Omaha, Nebraska. That's what the energy seems to be.
World-class sushi, good volleyball.
Yeah, and then a couple of new faces who have a few years of experience abroad playing pro. So love to see it. The roster that I'm most worried about is Columbus. So
tell us more.
By the numbers, they signed 9. That is the only single-digit number of signings in the league.
I mean, that's still a lot.
It's the lowest of the league. They have 5 open slots for their active roster. They've got 2 returners, 4 transfers, 3 newbies. Here's the kicker with Columbus. They traded their first-round draft pick away when they got Tori Stringer from Atlanta. So that means that they are one of 2 teams that does not have 5 picks. They only have 4 picks. So they have 5 active roster spots and 4 picks.
And 2 rookie spots, right?
And an additional 2 rookie spots, if that's
so you're gonna have to be signing some overseas peeps.
Yeah, but what's going on?
Yeah.
How did that not happen already? Did some things fall through?
Maybe their GM is like a lot of millennials, and it's a gig economy. They're GMing for a minor league baseball team. They're doing the volleyball.
It will be interesting to hear if we ever would what happened there. Because now that you bring up that they lost a draft pick, you're right.
They lost the draft pick and then lost Asia and Reagan Cooper.
Yeah.
Tori Stringer, we think is pretty good. She wasn't their only setter last year, but I don't know. Are we getting into bad trade territory already in the second league year?
Yeah.
Of the PVF.
The thing is, I do like your idea about the gig economy because we saw with Kendall Kipp, who they had signed her to play the last month of the league after her abroad season ended.
Mm-hmm.
That happened. Columbus did that at a higher rate than some of the other teams did. Kendall Kipp was one notable one, but that doesn't help you get off on a good foot.
Mm-hmm.
So unless, he's counting on some people to be playing abroad October, November, December, could there be some players in the Philippines League or some of the ones that end earlier?
Yeah.
Maybe he's cooking something up, but that doesn't mean I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, I mean, we're big Jill Gillen fans on the pod, but she can't do it herself. It's been a number of months since she was signed there, so...
And it's Wilma was injured a lot last season.
Well, this is the thing. They're well balanced.
It's a tight rotation.
They're well balanced right now. They signed, they don't have enough picks to cover their active spots, which is the number one problem. But they are pretty well balanced with Tori Stringer and Wilma as setting, Morgan Lewis on the opposite. Obviously, they got Jill Gill, Megan Courtney Lush on the outside. Paula Sarame from Orlando as a libero. They've got some people, and they have
And
a
they did
couple
that
new.
all in like a 12-day period in July.
That's right. That's what I'm worried about. We'll keep an eye.
Well, so like how many rounds is the draft this year? Is it the same as year one?
There are 5 rounds.
5 rounds.
Which means a total of 40 athletes will be selected.
Obviously, after that 40, right, there's a pool of undrafted, graduated free agents you can sign from, obviously, but
Totally.
you would think that, like, I don't know how many more than 40 women coming out of college are going to go to the PVF.
Right.
Like, there are a lot of people that are going to other leagues and everything. That seems like a lot.
There are a lot of women playing college volleyball. And
there are a lot of programs out there.
We've heard about some players who came from smaller schools. There's a lot of talent out there. I just don't know that that's what Angel is going to be doing in December during preseason. Like, but maybe they've got a good back office who's working on it. There's a lot of talent. It's not that he can't fill the spots, is what I'm saying.
It's just they haven't.
Fine, I'll play. Oh my God.
Get in there, Kel. They need you in Columbus.
Gosh. Just like my body breaking. Week 1. Be done.
But you wouldn't miss nearly as many serves. So you'd have that going for you.
Oh.
Okay. Now I'm going to tell you about the roster that I'm most intrigued by.
Tell us.
Intrigued.
I think they have some potential, and it's Vegas.
Ew.
They tied for grabbing the most transfers, including 2 big ones, Willow Johnson and Kendall White. In terms of their numbers, they've got 11 signed total, 5 returners, 5 transfers, 1 newbie.
Wow.
Whoa.
So they only have 3 active roster spots to think about. They have 5 picks. They're pretty well suited, I think, for the draft. But I think they need a little bit more outside depth. I'm very excited to see Kendall White lead in serve receive. I think Kendall White's arguably, we would have to look at the numbers and argue it, but I feel like she's one of, if not the best serve receiver in the league. And that was something that I thought the consistency from Vegas they needed. So I'm intrigued by what they can do with that.
Interesting. I mean, they still have the Oblad, Ben Buskirk, Middle, Hannah Maddox coming back, obviously.
We love it.
Alicia Glass-Childress also coming back. I mean, since we have our ear to the organization, we talked to Hannah Maddox already. Obviously, I think we know that they had some expectations that they didn't meet last year. And I think they felt better in the building about the team than it ended up working out for them during the season. So I don't know. I'll probably be good.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, obviously it didn't make the playoffs, but I think there's an ability to jump up a little bit there in the ranking.
Sure.
Yeah.
More than you would think. Okay. Next, the roster that I'm most confused by. And that would be the Atlanta Vibe.
All right.
I don't get it.
They kept a lot.
Well, and in total, they've signed 17.
Oh,
that would seem to be more than you're allowed to sign.
Well, you can sign. This is the thing. You can sign up to 25.
Sure, because this is where squad rules.
I used to get so mad with the preseason squad rules also. For preseason, you can take 25, which made me so angry because what are you doing? Asking people to come to preseason and then cutting them.
That's not, basically.
I don't like it. I kind of understand for the first season, but I don't like it here. Signing 17, they are returning 8. They've got 5 transfers and 4 new. Now, the other part of it is that with -3 active roster spots, they have 6 picks. 2 in the first round.
Yeah,
sounds like they're going to be making a deal with Columbus.
So, back for what? Future picks?
Futures. Send a player over to them so they can actually fill their roster out with players that are signed to contracts.
What is there in this bargaining, Ian, besides picks and people?
Potentially contract slots, I guess. Like if we're talking about the breakdown of how much money you can give to certain players, that means that certain teams are probably set up to offer more money to certain players or whatever. I mean, that's what I'm interested in about Columbus, is I would assume Tori is their highest paid earner, what we used to call a franchise player. But I don't know, like that could make some of that maneuvering a little more difficult if you only have a certain salary slot that you can fit a player in that you're trying to bring over to your team or bring from overseas.
I do think that this first year, every team has to be paying the same amount.
Sure. Yeah. Like I would assume there's no like variable salary cap or anything like that. Like
right.
It seems pretty structured in terms of how many salaries you can have at specific price points. And yeah, so I mean that might be something if there's someone that thinks that they're, more deserving of one of the higher slots, they can get traded to a different team that has that slot available. But yeah, I don't know. That's the part that's confusing because there's no hard salary cap, but there are those caps on, how much people can earn individually at the different slots. So essentially there is, right? There's a cap on how much money they can pay out in salaries. And it's just,
absolutely.
They don't really have the say of how they can divvy up that cap. It's like you have one person that can make this much money and two people that can make this much and so on. So
my best guess at what's going on here is that some of these returners are nearing, I think, the end of their career. And this was like, we'll re-sign you. We'll play you in preseason. We'll see if there's room. And that I think a handful of them might end up not getting asked back, or to getting waived means that you can get picked up by another team potentially. I think there are a small handful of those that Atlanta has signed. So it could be that new coach Caleb Anworth was just like, I don't want to make anybody mad. I don't want to cut somebody right now before I've seen what they can do and what they look like. Yeah. And like that. But it's interesting because it's the only team that really has this problem.
Yeah. Well, and I would wonder how much of it is like, if you're a player going into your second year in the PVF or coming from overseas to the PVF, like Atlanta just might be an attractive option. Like they were having fun, they were good. Might be a place that more people just want to go. And if you have the opportunity to go and compete in camp and know that if you get cut, one of these other teams can pick you up, then maybe you just are like, hey, I want to go to the PVF and I would most want to play in Atlanta, so I'll sign the contract and I'll go try and make the spot. And if I don't, we can figure it out from there. Because yeah, they were the best team all year. Why wouldn't you want to go there? And it makes sense that they would want to kind of roll that team back as much as you can. Like there shouldn't be too many changes you need to make to be competitive. Like you were already incredibly competitive. So
totally. And with Leah Edmond coming back, Marley Montsuri coming back, Morgan Hentz coming back, 3 players that got or like were close to getting some awards at the end of the year. I mean, that's pretty big right there. So Shelly Fanning in the middle and Karis Watson in the middle are starters who returned starters at some point during the season. But okay.
Intriguing.
Numbers from the other 4 teams, and we can chat about them real quick. Grand Rapids signed 12 with 4 returners, 4 transfers, 4 new. Kathy George spreading it out perfectly evenly. They have 5 picks, 1 per round, 2 active roster spots. Orlando Valks with 14 signings, 6 returners, 3 transfers, 5 new. So they've got the 14. They have 5 picks. San Diego Mojo, similar story, 14 total signed, 4 returners, 4 transfers, 6 new.
Making some changes.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Taiba has some connections, She's bringing in what I might venture to say is one of the new, could be a new, I don't want to make comparisons, but Rozier Calderon is
out of Greece,
but is a many year pro. Like I want to say more than 15 years.
Whoa.
So like I don't want to say new Betty, but it's giving.
Yeah, just for everyone, like a peek behind the curtain here, right? Like Nikki's been compiling a lot of information. How I know Calderon has been a pro for a long time. Pretty much everyone has their college and graduation year on the sheet. And Rozier Calderon just has none of it next to it. She came from before the time of college. She went pro right out of high school, like Kobe, obviously.
Wow.
in 2004. I actually don't know that, but it could be around then. The only other person with NA on here is Da-Young Lee, the setter, who's going to Mojo, who also is South Korean and went straight from high school into pro. So
damn,
similar situation.
Let's get our high school on there.
Yeah. I'll look it up.
No, that's cool. That is my preseason pick.
Yeah, you gotta keep an
I'm
eye
most
out.
intrigued in, by the way, is San Diego. That's mine.
Yeah.
That's your pick?
Yeah. For early season fave that I have.
Yep. People love playing for the Mojo coach.
Well, the Oregon players that we talked to seem to really enjoy playing for her when she was an assistant coach there.
Yeah.
I like the vibe of the Mojo coach.
I like the Mojo. Yeah.
One thing to note there is that there was a pre-season of 2024 trade between Mojo and Omaha. I didn't mention it when we were talking about Omaha, but as a result of that, and I'm actually not sure who it involved, there were a lot of players going back and forth before 24 preseason even started. But as a result, Mojo has 4 picks. They traded their second round pick to Omaha. So Omaha and Atlanta are the only 2 teams that have 6 picks. Atlanta with 2 in the first round, Omaha with 2 in the second round.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, Mojo, Jill Gillen was one of those early, like she was a draft day trade from Omaha to the Valkyries too, I think. And
yeah, there was a lot of draft day stuff going on. So that's actually interesting. Maybe we're going to see that draft day trades. Yeah. And that's the other part of just like that movie with the football draft day.
Oh, God.
Where they're like, I'll pick so-and-so for you.
Yeah.
If you give me this player, that could be the other thing that's happening here.
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, and that's what I just don't like. That's what I would be interested to see, kind of a movie about the PVF draft room, where how much of that is coming in, how much of that is you're drafting a college kid that wants a certain salary slot and you're not willing to give it to them. So you trade their rights to another team. That's that I'm sure there's a lot of that. Yeah,
could be. The last one, can't forget Indy Ignite.
Of course.
10 total signed, obviously. No returners. 10 PVF transfers. Nobody knew yet. And they will have 5 picks total. The first round, they get the first selection, and then the rest was random. So
how do you like that, going all PVF so far?
Well, it kind of makes sense if that coach is coming from D2 and might not have the network yet with some of the players who went abroad. So I feel like doing the traditional, we're just going to play by the rules and offer more money to players who
who want to be in the league,
and who have a little bit of experience, and you can kind of create this riff-raff crew. That's kind of, I feel like Indy's going to be pretty scrappy.
Their signings are good.
Okay. Just one thing I want to mention about eligibility. So this is my best understanding from cobbling together details from the main website, some social media posts, some things that I've seen. For this draft, those 40 players that are going to get picked, my understanding is that this is a college player draft. So that means that the athlete had to be eligible to play NCAA in 2024.
Okay.
This means that if an athlete's final NCAA season was 23, I think they would have to be picked up via the signing period.
Yeah, they're just
so this
a free
draft
agent.
Isn't for them. Right. This draft wasn't for them. And I think we've seen that with a couple of the new faces. People graduated in their last season was 23. Aiko Jones, Pia Timmer, Anna Dixon, right? These are players who their final eligibility was 2023. And they were picked up in the signing period. So I think for the draft, that means you had to be playing or eligible, could be injured in 24.
Okay, so are you saying that this doesn't include people who graduated in the spring of 24?
So this is the thing that I was trying to understand.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure your eligibility would go through the spring of 24, even though the volleyball season is over.
So based on the PVF website that's like the athlete FAQ.
Yeah.
They say all of these things. Work with your compliance officers if you're interested, work with your coach, work with your university. And then there's a section in it that says, we highly recommend that you graduate or have plans to graduate remotely during the spring of 24. And then at the end, it is highly encouraged to finish your education. So
don't quit your day job. All right. You're getting drafted in the PVF. Get your fucking degree.
Well, I
think they have to put that in to be like, we support education, but like also at the same time, try to get a remote degree.
Yeah.
Try to get a remote degree. But also, like, my question was, I didn't personally know anyone who had pro dreams. So the concept is foreign to me. But like, are all college seniors with pro hopes just graduating early, taking summer school?
Yeah.
Some of them I know come to school early, leave high school and go to their college campuses. Some of the best NCAA college players are going to their college campuses, taking summer school before their freshman year to train with not the coach, right? That's not allowed, but to train with players and to work out and stuff.
Yeah.
So are they on campus so much training that they just end up being able to graduate in December? That's what it seems like.
I assume it also just depends on the sport, right? Like,
of course.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about
their
volleyball.
schedule. I mean, so what was Asia's situation last year? Like how
she was in her COVID year. So I think she was still I think she was graduating in December. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
You. She was graduating.
That winter she was graduating and they drafted her before she graduated.
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense then.
Mm-hmm. But like a month before she graduated, not 5.
Yeah, not 5 months.
This is upcoming where we're going to run into this a lot because it's been COVID year, people, where they can choose, do I want to play another year or not? And then there were all the players who did play the other year. So now is when we're running into no more COVID year. And when are they finishing school?
And it's also confusing to me, right? Like, I don't know, outside of the team having the ability to draft the rights for these players, like what value does it have for a player to get drafted rather than become a free agent and sign a contract, right? Like in the NFL, your draft slot dictates your contract, how much money you can get, the minimum money you can get, the maximum money you can get. But none of that seems to be the case in the PVF.
They're still rookies no matter what, right?
Exactly.
Whether they,
So what does it matter for a player to get drafted number 1 versus number 40? It shouldn't be any different in terms of their negotiating standpoint for a contract. It might be different because the number 1 player is just a better player than the number 40 player. So they're willing to give them more money. But like, I don't think that there is all of that like financial infrastructure that comes with your pick number. So So I don't know like what the labor relations side of this is.
Right.
Why do they even have a draft rather than just signing the kids out of college? You know, like what is the
hype? Especially, I want to make this observation that they've announced that they've had a draft for a while. They had a draft last year, wasn't televised. It felt like, oh, we're gonna need to televise this thing. So it's like not even a promotional thing. Now it is because they're actually going to live stream it. But that feels like an afterthought.
Yeah,
I don't know. The vibes are weird.
Yeah. One more thing I'm going to throw in as a bit of a kicker is that there was a video that was posted by PVF. And, you know, it's funny because there are these videos or social media posts or things where I'm like getting breadcrumbs of information and they're like, everything you need to know about the draft. And I'm like, I can guarantee you this is not everything that I want to know about the draft. But one thing that was said on this one video was that a drafted player they like made a point of the very few things they said. This was one of the things. A drafted player has the choice to 1, play PVF in December, 2, play abroad or another league, 3, if they have additional NCAA eligibility, keep playing in college.
Yeah, just go.
So we do know from last year that when you draft a player, you get their rights for 2 years, which means at some point, maybe not this year, maybe this year, it's certainly a possibility that teams might draft juniors or athletes in their 3rd year of eligibility.
Is it legal?
Yes.
That would be my... Okay.
You just have to be 18
Sure.
and have had an eligible season in 24.
Sure.
So at some point they could draft freshmen.
Yeah.
And it could get into that world of basketball, football, where maybe you're leaving your college. Like it could. They've said, I guess, I don't think it will soon. It's like they're thinking way down the line on some things that I wish they wouldn't, and they would think way down the line on other things.
Maybe you can use this to think about something else more important.
So all this to say, the thesis, I think, of talking about signings and what each team is working with is that every team is going to be so different than it was last year. Like just by virtue of the fact that the highest number of returners that we have is Atlanta being weird with 8, but Orlando with 6. Yeah. So, 50% returners means everybody's going to be so different. Just want to mention existing question marks of people that I thought would come back or hoped would, who have not signed. Just going to throw these out there because these are also people who, will we get an 11th hour signing from Columbus?
And we haven't seen movement from Love on these.
Correct.
On these people either.
These are PVF players that I haven't seen in Love preseason. Allie Linehan is number 1.
Wild.
Where are you at, girl?
Where's she
player
at?
of the week 1.
What's she doing?
I don't know.
What's going on with her social media?
She's coaching some high schoolers, I think, and telling us about her protein intake.
Nice.
Okay. What
else?
You went and saw Italian Pro League. Maybe we'll talk about that. Are most of the leagues going right now? Are most of them lining up? Like, are there other leagues that some of these players you think are just playing against the PVF of like, maybe I'll go overseas, maybe I'll come back? Or would they know already?
I haven't, they would know. They would be, Ashley Evans signed in the summer to go play in Italy A1.
Okay.
Bergamo. So she's there now. Italy and Turkey and some of the European leagues started in October.
Okay.
And go until March, April. And then some of the Asian countries' leagues start a little bit even earlier, I think. Honestly, I'm not the 100% expert on this, but if these players aren't signed to an American league or playing currently abroad, I don't know. I feel like the American leagues are later, mostly.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it would make sense when last year a bunch of those leagues were finishing halfway through the PVF season or whatever.
Right. Okay, so Hannah Tapp is another one. Kind of surprised that she's not coming back, although she has a clothing brand, so maybe she's busy. Nutsara Tomcom, obviously we knew she's maybe towards the end of her career, so not a shocker there, but would have loved to see her. I think she played AU, so there was a hope. And then a couple players that also we felt like we didn't see play as much or had injuries at the end of last year, but I think are notable. Rai Santos, the Columbus setter, Samantha Drexel, also Columbus, the right side, and Yosiana Presley of Atlanta. None of them. Finally, just throwing this out there, haven't seen any announcements from Vegas that include Fran Flory.
Yeah.
So
it's an unknown.
Seems like a bit of an unknown to me. Okay.
I will say I was doing some recon. It seems that Allie Linehan has accepted a day job. I don't think she's coming back.
What kind did you LinkedIn search her?
No. She that would be I should.
Yeah.
I think she'd connect with
me.
me.
You coming back?
She's going to be she's a physical therapist or something at a place in near Louisville.
Oh, so you did check on LinkedIn. No, I'm just
kidding. No, I didn't. She posted about it on her Instagram, which is public.
I don't know how I missed that. Sorry.
Yeah, there's no PVF team there.
Not that we're aware of.
Maybe next year.
And I think she went to Kentucky, so I think she's just
it's the home state.
Yeah.
Well, we miss you, Allie.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's kind of it for this part.
Great. Yeah. Excited to talk to Jay and hear his thoughts on the players coming out of NCAA. Yeah.
feel like I do not have a good grasp on the college volleyball landscape, so we'll get Jay's help on that. Hey everyone, it's Ian from the podcast you're currently listening to, and I just wanted to say next up we're going to have Jay from the pvfdrafthub.com. Please go check out his work at the Substack. It's awesome. We'll have a link to it in the description. I just wanted to hop in here because, sometimes you get a little overexcited when you're meeting new friends and you don't do like incredibly in-depth introductions, and you just kind of hop right into the awesome conversation, which will be coming up next. So please enjoy and check out Jay's work.
Feel free to derail me.
Yeah, we'll probably just ask a follow-up question here or there, because I truly don't know much about college volleyball. So at this juncture, I'm out of it. So
did you happen to throw a quick Google search on any of the names that I sent you?
Yeah. I looked up a couple that I recognized. Maddie Skinner, to just remember what she looked like. I recognized Anna DeBeer.
Where does she play?
Louisville. Well, so okay. Then we have questions. Like Kelly wanted to know. What did you want to know? Oh, there's no pit girls on here.
Oh yeah.
The Pits.
The Pits.
Oh, yeah. And then their website was
so
broken yesterday, and so I couldn't
right,
look at the roster to answer my own question.
So the Pitt girls are really interesting. Mostly, I just don't think that team is driven by people who PVF is necessarily looking at right now.
Mm.
Like, for instance, they've got Kelly Stafford and Olivia Babcock drive that offense, but they're underclassmen. They're sophomores.
That was my hypothesis. I wondered if they didn't have a ton of seniors for whatever reason.
Right. They've got Kat Flood, who plays as their seventh player, but she's essentially a serving specialist. She's a senior. They've got Valeria Vasquez Gomez, who is Puerto Rican, and her whole deal is that she doesn't make mistakes, except she has been this year.
That tends to happen in your senior year.
And they've got Rachel Fairbanks, the setter, who's a 6'2" setter.
Yep. I've heard of her.
PVF wasn't really running a ton of setter right side hybrid players.
Oh, so you didn't mean height. You meant she's short and only plays only sets from the back row.
She's 6 foot. She's 6 foot even.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she's like a hybrid player. She plays setter and right side.
Mm.
Oh, see, this is interesting because,
and I just don't know how much of an appetite PVF has for that.
Yeah,
sort of thing.
for that.
You can't really, because there's just not enough subs to do something like that.
No, but the idea is that the other right side would set the other half of the game, which is something that was huge in the late 90s, early 2000s, because I remember first getting into volleyball and that being the big thing at the Olympics was that there were that you would set for half the game and you would hit for the other half. And I remember watching that because I was setting, and then it shifted by the time I was in middle school, high school, it shifted to setters being so focused on only setting, and mostly so that middles could run slides and run things behind the setter, that the whole volleyball world got away from that. And I haven't seen it in so long, but I think it should come back. I think it's so fun.
It is fun. There's and you know who does it a ton is Coastal Carolina.
Cool.
Their setter, Jalen Stout, I just Googled it real quick. She has 18 triple doubles on the season.
Holy shit.
Damn.
See, I like that. I guess it's more difficult to find two of them,
Yeah.
Then you're stuck a little bit
But I mean, if you've got, you're the second pro team in the United States, I feel like you can take your pick, right?
Yeah, I think so. I should think so.
You just got to
That's
build
very
your
interesting.
roster specifically towards that goal, I guess.
Well, it's a
Yeah.
different offense. It's a different offense to run.
Yeah.
You'd have to do it at the expense of like one of your bench hitters, and they were really like hoarding those last year.
Well, you kind of have to when you only have 6 subs. I feel like they're hoarding bench hitters. All of these teams are hoarding bench hitters because they need people in case someone's injured.
That seemed to influence how teams used their practice squad last year. Because what you didn't see was teams using like high risk, high reward players on their practice squad. What you saw was teams using players who had maybe 80% of the potential, but they could just like swap right in if anything happened, in like a break glass situation, which was interesting to me because that's not really how other pro leagues use their developmental slots. Like, I mean, my forte is baseball, right? MLB is my first love. I'm repping my minor league team, my shirt tonight. And that's not who gets drafted highly in MLB. It's the guys that who could flame out, but could be a superstar. So, like, trying to calibrate my brain to understand why PVF didn't seem to do that last year. I shouldn't say won't. There's not really a track record, but didn't seem to do that last year. I'm not really sure why.
I mean, we've had this conversation so much too, because again, I think like some of it goes back to the contract discussions where like in baseball or the NFL or the NBA, being on the minor league team and getting, the chance at a sniff at playing at that big team. I don't know what caliber of player right now the PVF is okay with or is okay with being like, hey, sit on our practice squad. We might need you. It might be like just if they're a really high caliber player, they're probably just like, I'll just go play somewhere else if you're not going to put me on the roster right now. So yeah, I don't know. It's tough.
It just seems so obvious to me if you've got a player who the rules say cannot suit up on game day. Their one job is get better. Why would you not take the player with all the physicals and all the mentals who might be a little short on putting it together and say your one job is get better?
And you don't think that's what they did this year?
I don't think
the first year. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
because also they only had him for that 1 year, right? Like they don't still have.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't have clarity on that. Like, do they still have rights if they drafted a rookie, kept them on their practice squad for the whole year? It's just like I don't know how much they were even planning for the future last year. Being like, oh, 2 years, this player will come good. Or if they were just like, I don't even know if it's going to be happening 2 years from now.
For sure.
We're just getting our roster through this year.
I mean, it's also different. Like all those other sports, they have a lot of people in their quote unquote practice squad, right? It's not just 2. Like, how do you think that affects this conversation?
They can afford to swing and miss.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. I don't get it. I think it will change. I think we'll see the role of that player change over time as there are more teams, right? And more college players who are looking to potentially join. But I can't wrap my brain around, for instance, an Atlanta Vibe that has signed 17 so far. Orlando Mojo that have signed 14 so far. Are you using your 4 to 6 picks to slot practice squad? Or are you using your 4 to 6 picks to see if they'll come to you as opposed to Europe? See if they'll come to you this year and then cut someone that you've signed who has been operating under the assumption for the last 6 months that they have a job come January.
Yeah. Put them on waivers.
It feels bad to me. So, but at the same time, they may have had a conversation. We don't know what those conversations are. For Atlanta Vibe, I did think that they may have said to a couple returners, we'll see how you do in December. And so maybe they've been prompted that is the chance that they're going to take, and they opted in.
I mean, that's how they do that in other sports too. I mean, you think about the NFL, they get 90 players to come into camp with them, and they come out with 53.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Just cutting them.
Yeah.
And that's what's tough is like these women have so many other options professionally right now that are, I'm sure, in their mind, prestige-wise, only 1 year into the league, like at least on par with the BBF. So how do you make those, roster decisions without necessarily knowing how many people are actually going to come to you?
Well, and that's the thing.
After draft day, yeah.
And that's the thing. Some women have a lot of options.
Sure.
But then a whole lot do not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? Because playing abroad there are a lot of barriers to it. Only 2 Americans per team in a lot of leagues. There have been a lot of barriers. It's been for the absolute elite. And I think this league can still be fun to watch and extremely high level without necessarily being just for the women who have a lot of options, right? So it makes it really hard to predict what's going to happen. But that said, let's do our best.
Yes.
So Jay, you have 10 players to highlight. No predictions on whether they'll go or when they'll go necessarily, but these are 10 players that you think are worthy of the PVF, and the PVF is worthy of them. And they're all in their final year of eligibility this year, right?
Right. Yes. All these players I wrote down are in their final year. That's correct.
Okay. So if you want to talk through some of them, all of them, whichever, and we'll see how far we get. The admission here is that the 3 of us, I don't really watch much college volleyball. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I get the highlights served to me via TikTok.
Sure.
And that's fun.
You haven't
But
been
it's
in the
like
film
it's all
room
the
yet.
but it's all the big schools. So it's like Pitt, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Question mark. Other ones. Actually, the SMU. They've had
I
some...
like SMU. If you want to start with SMU,
yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
What have you seen of SMU, Kelly? Do you remember anything?
Did they beat Pitt? Was that the
thing that I've seen is that all these teams are beating each other this year.
Yeah.
Which is fun. I love when that happens.
But it wasn't they beat Pitt? That was like Pitt's first loss, or
I'm gonna look it up real quick for you.
Yeah. Well, let's live fact check. Because so Pitt for the longest time was
SMU handed
sweeping.
number 1 Pittsburgh its first loss of the season in 5 sets. This from the SMU website.
Yes, and I do believe it was like a crazy 5th set. So Pitt was sweeping. They had this crazy run of all 3-0 wins. And then finally they dropped 1 set on October 4th. But then they lost.
The first chip in the armor.
I believe they are the Mustangs, SMU. Is that correct?
Yes, the Mustangs. That's correct.
We love a mascot.
Love doesn't love a mascot.
No.
Love does not love a mascot. They like interestingly entangled letters to representing the city.
Amorphous lines. And
they get a graphic designer in there and just animate the shit out of it.
But not the Mustangs.
I'll love. Sorry. Actually,
go for it, Kelly.
What is interesting about that, actually, I'm just looking at Pitt's schedule, is that it was one of those weird situations where they had to play SMU back to back 2 times in a row.
Really?
And so they literally beat them 3-0 and then lost to them 3 days later.
Isn't that the dirts?
Isn't that the dirt? The common phrase, isn't that the dirts?
Is it not a common phrase? We say it in our household.
The pits.
No, but that's kind
which
of
would have
gross.
been too perfect, right?
That's
It would have been too perfect of a pun. And you were like, oh, I have to avoid that. Oh yeah.
Can't have you sounding clever on the mic.
Yeah, no. Let's say the dirts. All right, Jay. So tell us more about SMU and who you have from there that you like.
Yeah. SMU has a middle named Natalie Foster, who spent 4 years at Wichita State and was good, but not like amazing, incredible good. And she transferred up to SMU this year, and they just unlocked a whole nother gear for her. I talked to her in October. Actually, I think I talked to her in September and wrote about her in October. But she was honest with me and said, look, I didn't feel like I'd been growing as a player in years at Wichita State. And I came to SMU, and I wasn't even on their roster yet. And I got to sit down with one of their coaches, and he showed me this, that, and the other thing that I could improve on right then and there. And that's kind of what sealed the deal for her. I love a middle who can serve. I'm a sucker for that. And Natalie Foster, that's the biggest thing that they unlocked for her, was being able to serve. She would sort of like serve up marshmallows at Wichita State.
She's the middle that won the game.
Yeah.
Her serve is insane.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, against Pitt. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're all good. Did you have any other thoughts on that?
No, I just remember it being crazy.
Yeah.
Again, highlights via TikTok, that's all I'm getting.
She was hitting over 400 at the time. I don't think she is anymore. Again, let's live fact check that.
She's close. She's at 380. It's pretty good.
380. Okay. I mean, her previous season total in aces was 26, and she's blown right past that. And at 6'4", she can, she has the height to be able to influence the game blocking. There's still some things she has to clean up there. But on the whole, I think it's an excellent package to build on. And you know what else I love is a player who's capable of growing when they're in their final years of eligibility. A lot of players stall. And Natalie Foster has such an affinity for the game. That's not what happened for her, and it doesn't look like that's coming down the pipe for her. Not to me, at least.
Yeah. I feel like that is such a marker of success in, I think, just professional leagues, is to peak later. And it sounds like she is following that trajectory, which is cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that you went through all these teams and what they have and what they've done. Does it seem to you like there's a team who needs a middle kind of in that category?
That is a great question. Well, Indy only has 2 middles.
One of those middles is Chiamaka Nwokolo, who couldn't get on the court last year.
I don't know much about her as a player because she didn't get any time last year. But yes, she's one of the 2 Indy middles.
Yeah, all to say Indy could probably use a middle or 2 on the roster.
Right.
Sorry,
but the Vibe also have all those picks, and they're picking number 2 again.
Do you have even a sense of what the league wants out of their top pick? Or top 2 pick?
Someone who will play for them.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's pretty much all they care about.
Yeah, I'm not sure how stung they are from going big, kind of promoting Asia as the first pick and going to Columbus and staying in Ohio.
But how could they know she'd turn on them like that?
Well, yeah, but I don't know if that means that they will play it a little more chill this year. Be like, oh, they were picked, but who knows?
I will say Blake Moeller is the other Indy Ignite middle who was on Orlando last year, but had a hip injury and then surgery, and then is working on coming back from it.
Wow.
So I actually think this could be a great pick for Indy.
Yeah.
I don't know about first, because we can't speculate about any of those things. We'll continue to, though. But I think they could use a middle.
You've got some other middles on your list, though. So
I do.
Stiff
I do have some
competition.
other middles on my list. My favorite player in college volleyball is on this list, and it is Corey Lewis from Florida State. Corey Lewis is a joy to watch play. Corey Lewis is always the most athletic player on the court. She's not crazy tall, but she can block just about anything and jumps super high, which unlocks a whole range of shot angles for her. Corey Lewis, I think, could fit anywhere. She is not, from what I understand, the most, or was not the most polished player when she came into college volleyball, and had to get out of the mentality of like beating people strictly with her physicality. But they had Chiari Roby. Florida State had Chiari Roby on their roster last year, and she and Chiari Roby were the only pair of starting middles to both hit over 400 in the country last year.
Wow.
Gorgeous.
And Chiari Roby was a massive good influence on her when it came to being willing to hit soft in big moments, being willing to trust the more instinctive, the less instinctive side, and the more touch and feel, like technique sort of stuff.
She can see the court.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I've never been the kind of guy who likes to talk about intangibles, but just watching her on the court, she has the it factor that you can't live without.
Cool.
I mean, that's what's interesting, seeing some of these scout reports going back, all the way to early high school for some of these girls is wild, because I think a lot of that you can see on those early scouting reports, and then it's just a crapshoot, how they grow from there.
Right.
But, it's cool to see, because I think she was a fairly highly scouted out of high school, but like how do you know how that'll turn? So yeah, that'll be cool.
And for Corey Lewis, is first overall too high? I don't think so. Talking about middles to Indy.
Mm-hmm.
And putting that on record is scary to me, because she could just be like a 4th round pick who sits on the practice squad. Because what do I know? But if I were in a war room, that's the girl who I'd be pounding the table for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, do you think that we're gonna get some war rooms in this draft live stream?
No,
the draft live stream.
Given the fact that I think there were 2 videos from last year's draft that PVF posted to YouTube,
and they were
these like
dramatic.
They were like dramatic camera following Angel Perez with like a cell phone, and he was like, nice. I've got her on the line," and then like he like leaves the room, and then like another person is like following him. Those were the only videos, was like war room-esque, like clearly just left the war room, just going back in, camera following.
Funny.
Maybe we'll get some of that as content before or after the fact. I don't know that they'll live do it though.
Yeah. What is the status of Love in all of this? Do they have the ability to recruit any of these players?
From what I know, Love, I have not put on my list any of the players that have a public connection to Love, anyone who's posted about Love or has an NIL deal with Love. Because Love clearly wants to build a relationship with amateur players, and NIL is the way to do it at the moment. So if Love has an NIL connection to one of these women who plays college volleyball, I figure it's PVF hands off, because there's such a huge amount of girls who are available and talented. I don't know if they have the assets to go to war for a player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Love will probably, because remember, before
their season started,
they're in preseason right now. We've talked before about how Love said, I believe, 12 roster spots per team, and then they went and signed all of those roster spots, and then everybody here is speculating, oh, well, then they won't take any NCAA players this first year if they've signed everything. And then this summer they were like, no, we were kidding. It's 14. It's 14 per team. So those Love affiliated athletes, I imagine they'll either go sit the bench for those teams, or
they'll let them graduate.
They'll let them take their time graduating just in time for them to coach a ton of summer camps per their contract requirement.
You know what's interesting to me is that the two best college liberos in the nation are on NIL deals with Love. It probably doesn't mean anything. I just think it's interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
They're cornering the libero market.
Love is long liberos too. They like have a lot of them.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because liberos don't usually get any love.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I'm trying to make up for
Wow.
that missed opportunity
yeah.
there, Nikki.
I have to make up for it.
We're just hamming it up.
Okay, well, I've noticed no liberos on your list.
Right. That's because the two best liberos in the nation are Love.
So we need a sneaky libero to come out of the woodwork somewhere.
So can I throw out a couple of entirely speculative names here?
Do it.
Yes,
Always.
absolutely.
Hear it.
All right. So Mary Schroll from Arizona State. She's been racking up the stats this year, sort of stuffing the stat sheet, so to speak. She plays for JJ Van Niel. Not sure how to pronounce his name, who is one of the smartest, most cutting edge head coaches in the high end of the NCAA. And she came from Loyola Marymount, another small school transfer who's only gotten better throughout her career. So that's a girl who could be there.
Cool.
The Rice libero, Nia McCardle, is NFL legacy, really athletic, another stat stuffer, takes her job super seriously, like the peak of coachability. Maybe not the most vocal.
Is it to the point where it's like, all right, calm down?
Maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit.
That can be good to have,
The other one is Emmy Klicka from Pitt.
Good name.
That's the other libero who I want to highlight. She's really smart, total grinder. Obviously, he's done it at the highest level at college volleyball. I don't think the ceiling is super high there, but if you just want a backup who you can trust not to make you look foolish, there you go, Emmy Klicka.
That could be practice squad vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly, but I don't know if somebody's going to want to put a libero on the practice squad when outside hitters
shoulders fall off.
Premium. Yeah. Premium.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying there. Okay, that's great. I love to hear that. We'll keep an
Who-
eye out.
Yeah, if we're going there, like who are the hitters? We got some middle blockers, got some
Sure.
liberos. Who's
Sure,
smashing the ball? Yeah.
You want the outside shoulder fall
Yeah.
off girls?
Yeah, who's ripping their shoulder out?
You've got you got Melanie Parra. We were talking about her earlier. She's from TCU. She's a little on the small side and doesn't play awesome defense. So maybe that's a career killer because she has to fit into one of those international spots. But everything point scoring wise, she's got it on lock. She's really dangerous from the front row and the back row. She hits from the service line really well. Here's another interesting wrinkle to me about rookies in PVF is that they have to go straight from college into playing the entire PVF season. They don't have the cycle of cool down and warm up that the returning veterans are going to get. There might be durability concerns there as well, but she's just a ton of fun to watch play. She can uncork any number of, line, cross court, steep angle hits, pretty much anything you want. She's going to be able to give it to you in that regard.
Your point on being an outside, being a bit of a liability on defense, you meant like digging, right? Not blocking.
Yeah.
So to that point,
I did not say liability, to be clear.
No, that was my word. That was my word.
I said she's not incredible, which when you're talking about a player, an outside who's 5'11" in a verticality obsessed league, they might expect incredible from you.
Right. And something that I think we're going to see is players who went from NCAA where they didn't have to play 6 rotations because you get a bajillion subs there. And there are a lot of DSs and serving specialists and players that college coaches want to get in the mix sometimes. And being expected to play 6 rotations and play back row. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there are some college players who are chosen in this draft who are maybe not playing much back row in their college seasons this year, because that expectation hasn't caught up yet in college.
Mm-hmm.
So these first couple years, it would not surprise me if we saw some of these women drafted for practice squads. Like that.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
I am seeing it a lot more, especially at these like
the highest level.
Yeah. These like top 10 teams or whatever.
Yeah.
And like the back row attacks and all that.
Yeah. I mean, so much of it does just seem like up to when you have all those subs.
Right.
Why not use them and make some tweaks and try other stuff out?
When you have 92 swings in a single match.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at ourselves. Yeah.
Yep. Totally.
Yeah.
So I mean, that may or may not be the case for this individual, but I just think that could still be a decent contender for training at that level and starting to see it a little bit more.
Cool. There are a couple like definitely entrenched 6 rotation hitters here, though. I mean, we've got Madison Skinner, who's the most famous player in college volleyball right now. I mean, am I wrong about that?
No, I don't think you're wrong about that, because I've heard of her.
Yeah.
So that's
back to backs.
And if you watched did you watch the national championship game last year?
It
was the Texas game, yeah.
There was a play that Texas ran a couple times where they ran some eye candy to Asia O'Neal and actually had Maddie Skinner just exploding out of that back row. And it first time I saw it, my jaw hit the floor. Madison Skinner is the most famous player in college volleyball for a reason. I mean, she's athletic as heck, as explosive as you could possibly want coming out of the back row. I saw a video where she was explaining everything she writes on her finger tape. And on the pointer finger, she has 3 letters, MFS. Madison Skinner.
Wow. We swear on this podcast.
Yeah.
Well, my mom might listen, so let's.
Very fair.
Yeah, I mean, she destroyed that national championship game too. She was on fire.
Oh yeah. There are rumors that she wants to play in Italy, which could put a damper on the whole conversation. Also, she just hasn't been Madison effing Skinner this year. She's been good. She's been good, but not as good as like the person with a mountain of accolades you might think she would be in her senior season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a high bar.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just trying to put myself in her shoes. Like everyone is going to want to give her the opportunity. So what's going to be best for her? And I don't know if it's PVF.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked a little bit about this love international dynamic. And I really do think that this time around, there are ways for current college players to work with their coaches and with their programs and talk to pro coaches within compliance. Like that, there are ways that can happen.
Yeah.
I don't think that, maybe I'll eat my words here. I don't think that we are going to see a whole lot of players get drafted to the PVF without having verbally committed to coaches that they will play for them.
It was my understanding that's what they did last year for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the majority of the players I think it was 35 out of 40 that still went to PVF. Now, Asia O'Neal leaving midway through the season because of her USA roster hopeful situation and then going to Love afterwards. That's different, right? Yelahasheva playing a full season, going to Love afterwards. I think that a handful of those players did end up getting opportunities abroad, like Kendall Kipp, for instance, finished a season in Turkey or Italy, maybe. She's in Turkey now, and then came to play the rest of the season with Columbus. So I think we can count on them at least intending at the time of the draft to play for the PBF.
Yeah.
And so I do think that if they could get Maddie Skinner to say, yes, I will play for you, like, I think that they will have had that verbal confirmation, and
Absolutely.
Indy would take her in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with you completely. You've also got to take into consideration from her perspective, it's a little frightening to see Asia O'Neal and Magda Ilasheva go to Love, Amber Aigidi go to Italy, and then go to Love. For somebody who thinks, probably she thinks that she could be an Olympian if everything goes right for her.
I would think that if I was her.
I mean, look, literally Love is just like, oh, look at our Olympic team that we made.
Yeah.
And also our friends.
Like, I'm actually like, it's kind of crazy to me that they're like allowed to do that. But I mean,
no,
whatever.
I know.
It's pretty wild. But yeah, of course. I mean, I've heard from many people, well, Love's better because it has more Olympians.
Sure.
Maddie Skinner could set the whole trend back. But if she doesn't, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what she does.
Don't put any pressure on it.
Yeah.
No worries, Maddie. Whatever you want. Get your money, girl.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I don't know. Like, it's tough. I don't know how many of those teams will take a step back after this season just because, like, there is so much on the resume already for her. Like, I think it'd be easy to just be like, well, you know, what, it happens. She's senioritis at Texas, and
yeah,
it's a long season, so I don't know.
And that's the sales pitch, is that it's still there.
Yeah,
totally.
You know who the conversation I would love to be a fly on the wall for is Audrey Koenig.
Tell us about her.
Because Audrey Koenig is a 6 rotation hitter, all ACC player of the year last year. Really dynamic Florida State outside. She loves beach and wants to play another season of beach.
Oh.
Yeah, right. That's spring.
So that's a pretty big issue if PBF teams are interested in her.
Right.
I mean, I mean, can we have a commitment? Like, okay, girls are going over to the abroad and then coming back when their seasons are over. So just do the same thing.
Yeah.
Here's what I would ask you. How much capital are you willing to invest in a player who you know for a fact will not be able to play for the majority of your season?
I mean, what do they have to invest?
Yeah, they
draft
don't.
Capital.
They could
pick
draft capital.
Just draft capital.
Oh. Okay.
Like that's when we talked to Hannah Maddox, right? Like that was
Atlanta's got draft picks out the wazoo. Let them do it.
Just take them. But like she was talking about like that there was that process of asking her if she'd be willing to come there if they took her.
Yeah.
And that's something that they moved the draft date up specifically so that they could get girls in camp preseason.
Yeah.
They said that in the press release. We want them to be in our preseason.
That
process.
starts on December.
So you have to imagine they've been doing some work with these picks that they think they'll be making in terms of getting some confirmation of whether or not they'd be willing to at least come to camp and see what's up.
Work from home,
Yeah.
It's a post-COVID world.
The work from home volleyball, like...
Oh, it isn't meant to be a finish your degree.
Okay, but if you are a team that feels set for this year, I can envision taking a 4th or 5th round pick to pick someone who will play for you in 26.
And that's exactly what happened with Kendall Kipp. Kendall Kipp was a 3rd round draft pick. She went and played in Italy. They had those conversations with the draftees last year. So they must have known that she wanted to go play in Italy. And I cannot imagine that there was not an agreement in place. Okay, you will come back to us at the end of the season because that's what she did.
Right.
Yeah.
They were plotting Sam Drexel's demise from day one.
Yeah, they knew.
Yeah.
But yeah, that does make it tough, right? Like that they are. Then there was that mid-season culling that happened when all those overseas leagues were done, and they got to see who wanted to come over, and they had to cut a bunch of people.
I think that's going to be more limited this year, though, because we're moving league up 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for listening, PBF. God, I needed that. So there's less of that, a bit. I don't think it'll be as big of a deal. As big of that. Right. There was like a movement, and I don't think that's going to happen this year as much. That's my prediction. But I do think it's interesting. We talked about this a little bit. They set this up from day one so that this draft means you have the rights for 2 years. They made that decision on purpose. Whether it's because they're thinking, oh, some of these seniors will not have been graduated by December 1st or won't be able to remotely continue to get their degree, or because they're expecting some will play beach, or because they think, oh, you'll play in Italy for a year and then you'll realize you don't know any volleyball words in Italian. And you'll come running back to us in year 2. Like, I think that they set it up that way on purpose. I wouldn't be surprised if they leverage that a little bit this year, but I don't think it will be as leveraged as in the future. That's
absolutely in the future. Absolutely in the future, it could be a tool, because that's when you start looking at, okay, if we have the exclusive rights to a player, negotiating rights to a player for 2 years, why would you not throw a 6th rounder at an underclassman, a sophomore who you like? If PVF player salaries and PVF prestige get to the point where it's a worthwhile gamble for a player, there's no reason why an underclassman who looks promising couldn't be a draftee.
I agree.
So that in 2 years, after they decide that they're sick of college, they're not going to go to PVF and play professionally.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of road ahead before that can be a practical solution to anything.
Totally. Get your degrees, ladies.
Yeah.
Please.
Oh, for sure.
Like that
for
can
sure.
be part
at the moment, that's not the right call.
No, yeah.
And that can be part of, right?
Please.
Like, Nikki, you're talking about like the Vibe having so many contracts, like as they're starting to build their rosters ahead of time for future years. If you're locked up for the next year, you can, but don't want to give up those draft picks, you can still use them on, future rights. And
they have 2 and 6 overall this year.
Yeah.
What are you doing with that?
Yeah.
I hope something big. But I don't know about for this year.
We'll have to see at 11 a.m. on Monday.
Well, noon for Jay.
Yeah.
All right. Who else we got? There are 4 teams right now with only one signed opposite. And you need, even if that one signed opposite is wonderful, shout out Morgan Lewis for the Columbus Fury. I think we need some backups. So that is Columbus, Grand Rapids, Omaha only has one opposite. San Diego only has one. So I think whoever we talk about could be any of those.
How about 6'9" Anna Schmreck?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Get her in the NBA.
Yeah.
You can also throw in some middles that they're turned to opposites in this crew.
Ooh, you think this late?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Anna Schmreck, I don't know how to, it's Smrek. So do that what you will. She plays for Wisconsin. So that's already right there, a resume patter. And she tends to be up and down. She'll explode in one game and then be pretty quiet in the next. But in a verticality obsessed sport, that's, I think, all you really need to get a chance.
I think what are they? It's you can't coach tall, right? Like you
really can't.
They can coach some other things, but 6'9", that sounds pretty good on paper, right? Like
it's pretty wild.
It's good enough for Wisconsin. I'm sure some PVF teams would be fine.
Oh, guess what I just found out live on air? She's from Ontario.
Oh, international player.
International spot.
International.
Turn on the international horn.
She
had an 8-block game at Michigan.
I was just looking at that too, yeah.
Omaha already has I believe both of their international spots taken.
I'd have to imagine, though, that's a topic for camp battle. Like, okay, which international players are going to come out of this?
Yeah.
I don't like international player preseason Hunger Games.
It's all happening.
I don't like thinking about that.
It's all happening.
In this political economy. Oh God. But you're right.
Get him out of Texas.
Oh my God.
Unfortunately, I don't like it, but that's how you get the best out of your players in a lot of instances.
Oh God.
Yeah, you throw a knife in the middle of the room. Yeah.
I think that's what they said in the fictional Hunger Games.
Play for the job. Yeah. Or just hard knocks, right? That's the way. Bringing competition at all the positions.
Perhaps I'm misunderstanding something, but in my opinion, if PVF wants to be a respectable league, they have to function like one. And unfortunately, in respectable leagues, you play or you get cut, period.
Yeah.
Problem also is that in respectable leagues in the United States, there tends to be a bit of a monopoly. And so therefore leagues can kind of do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And so I just think that we can have a respectable women's sports league that also treats players with respect.
Well, those players, the league never will. That's why you need a union. Like, that's why the players' unions exist usually. But that just means, like, you can still get cut. You'll just have some money that they'll have to toss you on the way out the door, I guess.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, that's another issue, or not necessarily an issue. In some ways, it's good for players. In some ways, it's bad, is just having, love, having the international leagues as well. Like, in some ways, they can play those leagues off each other, and in some ways, those leagues can, just have best practices that keep kind of things on an even keel for all of them. But I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited for the draft.
Me too. I'm excited. There's a little teeny part of me that wishes that we had done a post-draft show instead, because I feel like there's going to be a lot to learn.
We will be doing one, so if you want to come chat post-draft at some point before the season starts, we're down.
Theoretically, I would like that.
Yeah, if we can find a time, that'd be awesome. So.
For instance, Argentina Ung, the setter from Arizona State, I am fascinated to know. And if you want to have your say on this particular part, because I think setters are my ultimate weakness when it comes to understanding what's going on the court. But I'm fascinated to find out whether she gets drafted or not, because she explicitly wants to play PVF ball.
Oh, really? How do you know?
Because I talked to her.
Oh, right. I was like, is she like posting stuff on Instagram?
She's
like
please.
Tagging PVF? The only real pro volleyball league.
She explicitly wants to play PVF ball and is good, but is also from Mexico. And a setter is not a position you can just throw around roster spots on.
Sure.
So does someone bring her into camp and says, earn our backup job?
Yeah. I think yes. Every team right now has 2 setters committed. Now, do I think that all of them deserve that spot?
A commitment.
No. And I probably won't say who, because they're lovely human beings. But I think there are some weak setter roles there. And even if they're backups, I would love to see a team pull a 3rd setter and see what happens. Maybe that's the only way that I approve of Hunger Games like activities is
Setter Hunger Games,
because it's QB1, QB2, QB3. You can all have your different style. I feel that a setter can change the entire energy of what a team can do. And so I'm very intrigued by that. I would love to see her get picked up. She didn't say, she just said, I would love to play for any PVF team, or is there someone she was angling?
There was not an angle that I saw.
Okay.
It was kind of just she likes playing in the States and would like to continue playing pro in the States. That was the vibe that I got off of her.
Cool.
You mentioned a setter changing the entire nature of a team. And to that, I'd like to mention Mia Tuaniga from USC, who I put in my honorable mentions rather than my specifically to talk about category, because even by the admission of her own head coach, Brad Keller from USC, is not a setter for all teams. You know, she is a kind of a playmaker style. You think about how the football metaphors will continue to deal with it.
I do it too.
You think about how Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow are both great quarterbacks, but very different styles of quarterback. Where Joe Burrow makes the play that's in front of him, and Patrick Mahomes kind of goes and does his own thing, out of system, out of structure, and they both make a lot of money doing it. And Brad Keller kind of described Mia Tuaniga to me as being that sort of Patrick Mahomes type, which is going to cause a lot of coaches to rip their hair out. So I don't even know, being that I don't have any insider information, I don't even know if there's a team in PVF who'd be willing to give that kind of setter a shot, a rookie, that kind of rookie setter a shot.
Yeah, I guess it's one thing having like Tom Com come in after her whole entire career of being great.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is interesting because so she's 5'9", and it's interesting because it could be the same thing. If I look at the setters who are in the PVF right now, we've got some who are, I would say, certainly at the end of their careers. No shade. They're great. They're going to play great ball this year, even. Like, they won't necessarily not be able to do that. But I think there's a couple setters who only have another year or 3 in them. And so it's interesting to think about teams drafting some of these setters, regardless of what kind of quarterback they are, with the idea of you're going to learn from these elders and you're going to maybe fight with between 2 and 3 with the idea that one will retire in the next couple of years, right? I think that that's a very viable spot for, I don't know about a practice squad player. I don't know if that would be fun for a setter. I just think as a younger setter, you're probably hungry to lead a team. But with some of these olds whom I love, maybe you say it's just 1 year and then I'll fight for the starting position next year.
Maybe.
Well, and do you think like, is it more of a gap going pro as a setter versus, we talked about, the specialization in college that isn't really there in the PVF, but is there a value to for some of these players to come out and be like, no, actually that seems good that I can spend a year, learning some, new ways to be a pro and to change my game for that environment before I take, full-time responsibilities.
Well, I kind of wonder if also the specific setter has an influence on it. Because you could have someone like Tuaniga she's a jump server and a pretty deadly one. If a team was willing to take her on as the future setter and current serving specialist, maybe that is a different conversation.
Yeah, totally. You have a role in this other way, like Ortiz last year. And then we'll find, that primary skill for you in the future. All right. I think we're doing great. We went through all the positions. I'm excited now that I've got names with some familiarity.
Yeah, this was for me to really helpful.
Keep a look. Yeah.
I hope it was.
This was so good. Lovely. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
See you next time.
See ya.
Yeah, talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to Court Captains, a volleyball podcast. Please give us 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and like and subscribe on YouTube. If you like what you're hearing, support small podcasts. If you don't like what you're hearing, then please just go ahead and mind your business. Follow us on Instagram at CourtCaptainsPod and email us your questions or comments at courtcaptainspod@gmail.com.
Don't ever forget to be the captain of your own court.
And have a happy draft.
Yeah,
have a good week.
Night.
Draft
Or
day.
draft morning.
Draft day.
I keep saying draft night, but it's 11 a.m.
Draft day.